Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the third and final day of the 11th Annual Asian American Business Summit and Expo. We hope that you've enjoyed all of the sessions up till now, but I have to tell you, today is a very special day because we've got some outstanding speakers and some very interesting panel discussions. I want to take this opportunity to thank once again the committee, the Business Summit and Expo committee who put this together. But I also want to thank our esteemed board of directors. And I have to tell you, this is the strongest board this organization's ever had. And they are top-notch executives in their fields and really doing a very good job trying to build and promote Asian American businesses throughout the metropolitan Washington, D.C. area. I just want to take a moment to actually name them out because, again, I am very, very happy to be a part of this group. First, the chair of our board, Stephanie Shih from M&T Bank, Vice Chair Laura Belden, Bank of America Private Bank, Vice Chair John Lin from Capstar Commercial Realty, Treasurer Zongwei Tao from Waris Incorporated, Secretary Stan Fuji from Fuji Group LLC, past Chair Wan-Hee Kang from Youth for Tomorrow, our esteemed president and founder, Cindy Shao, Dr. Cindy Shao, Ken Fong, president of Mabomo, Joe Martin from the University of North America, Kishan Alexander from World Insurance Group, Rina Bhatia from Proposal Helper, Hao Chen from Capital Bank, Zach Heng from the Heng Group LLC, Isabel Nguyen from State Farm Insurance, Pallavi Sabu from Harmonia Holdings Group LLC, and Gerald Lamel from Dunlap Bennett and Ludwig. So thank you all, and we really, really hope you enjoy today's session. Take care.
As we approach the final months of 2020 that rounds out this year of new challenges, the Chamber's theme, Creating a Golden Future for Business Success, will continue to forge new horizons to benefit the area's diverse business community and advance the interest of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders that work in various parts of industry. I truly hope the final day of the Chamber's 3-day event will inspire professional development as you make new business connections, gain valuable knowledge from top business professionals and government officials, and embrace the rich cultural diversity that makes the DC metro region's business community truly amazing. Each participant can reference our official event program that includes the daily program schedule for you to follow as you choose which activities and speakers best suit your professional needs. Our day 3 concludes with our virtual business summit this year. Please refer to Friday's daily program schedule for all planned activities and speakers. Once again, the Asian American Chamber of Commerce wants to thank our Business Summit and Expo Awards Gala sponsors, who we will continue to hear from throughout this final day and beyond. I ask that you connect and support our sponsors who have generously contributed their resources towards the success of this multi-day event. I also ask that you learn about the mission and services provided by the Asian American Chamber of Commerce that advocates for the advancement of Asian American and Pacific Islanders business interest and success in our community and beyond. You can visit the Chamber's website at www.asian-americanchamber.org for more information. I know we already heard from Mr. Vancivella, but I did want to mention that he is the co-chair of the Business Summit and Expo, who began our Friday summit. And we already heard some opening remarks from Ms. Stephanie Sheh, who is our AACC board chairwoman. We sincerely thank them for their efforts and all that they did for the success and coordination of this business summit and awards gala. It's a true multi-day event. At this time, I want to introduce Mr. Shigemi Ando, who is the Counselor for Economic Affairs, Embassy of Japan, who will share a few remarks as we open our Business Summit Day 3. Thank you. It's my honor, Mr. Shigemi, to give you the floor.
Well, my name is Shigemi Ando, the Economic Counselor of Japanese Embassy. Good afternoon, the friends of the Asian American Chamber of Commerce, and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your kind invitation to me and giving me the opportunity to speak to you. Well, last year, I joined the 10th Asian American Business Summit held at Springfield. And it was a very nice event, very friendly, very warm, very active. And I really enjoyed the event. But at that time, I could never imagine what happened to us today. I could not imagine the pandemic of COVID-19. And under such a huge, difficult circumstance, uh, the Asian American Chamber of Commerce successfully held the 11th Asian American Virtual Business Summit and Expo, the Jewels of Asia. So I would like to express my sincere respect and appreciation to them. We are now still in the middle of pandemic of COVID-19, and I feel so sorry for those who lost their own lives or And at the same time, I am very proud of many Japanese and Japanese people working for this country and living with you and fighting with you against the COVID-19. Well, it's about a bit old story, but about 10 years ago, the March 11th of 2011, a big earthquake hit Japan and we lost many people. More than 22,000 lives were lost. And under our worst days, we still remember very well the United States and the US military decided to stay with us and work for us and help us very strongly. And due to your strong support, we are now recovering from our disaster. But because of the huge size of natural disaster, still our society is very influenced and drastic change, I think. And I also have the impression that the COVID-19 will bring a huge challenge and probably has brought already a huge challenge, huge change to the United States economy and society and American individuals' way of life. Next year, probably we will have the vaccination, but still the substantial part of such change will remain in long term, I think. Well, this is my case, and this is a very little example. But 1 year ago, I couldn't imagine I joined the virtual event like this from my home because I'm not good at the IT technology, frankly speaking. And I strongly believed the business should be done at the office. But because of the change of COVID-19, I can talk with you by the virtual stage. And the change of US economy and society is so huge and probably once in a life experience. And so probably some industries and some business may be disadvantaged, but many of us can find and probably will find the new opportunity of business and life. And under the new normal of the post-COVID-19 world, we need a new service, new satisfaction corresponding to the new way of business and new way of life. I strongly believe the Asian American business community, because of its open-mindedness and its hardworking ethics, the Asian American business community will contribute a lot to such change through its entrepreneurship and innovation. And to inspire the new leadership and business innovation, to encourage the free exchange of ideas, experience, information, and the development of new human networking is highly critical. And in that context, I think AACC, Asian American Chamber of Commerce, is doing a very good job. And today we will have the two important panel sessions after my speech. One is about the international business and one is about e-commerce. Both of them are very timely and very suitable for the challenge we are now facing. And I would like to talk about another lesson I learned from the current pandemic. We are now living in a free and open society, and we are very proud of. But sometimes our society is vulnerable to the crisis such as the current pandemic. But I strongly believe our society and our democracy has the power and strength to overcome the current difficulty. In my country, we have more than 95,000 patients and 1.7 thousand death tolls caused by the COVID-19. And fairly speaking, our response is relatively successful. The government of Japan requested the people to stay at home at the peak of the pandemic, but we do not have the measure to enforce or to enforce people or to punish anyone who do not follow the request. But the combination of the effective communication from the government to people and the voluntary cooperation of business and citizens and the effective public health system enable us to contain the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, the public health is highly dependent on the way of life, the way of society, the way of culture, etc. So we cannot have the one-size-fits-all solution. But I think it is very important that we can contain the pandemic with a manner compatible with our free and democratic society. We are still in the middle of the pandemic, and we are still learning how to balance between the economy and the public health safety. And again, in this context, the leadership and innovation, business innovation is highly critical. And I'm very convinced of the Asian American business community will play and probably has already playing the important role to address this issue. And ASCC will play a very important support to them. And so finally, I would like to say congratulate on the successful 11th Asian American Virtual Business Summit and Expo, Jewels of Asia. And thank you very much for your kind attention.
Everybody set? All right, great. So, hello everyone. I wanted to officially welcome you to the Asian American Chamber of Commerce, the International Business Panel. And before we get started, I want to say that none of this could be made possible without the support of our sponsors, the chamber members, and also most importantly, our panelists who have agreed to share their time and expertise with us. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Brandon Hughes. I'm a business strategy consultant and also founder of FAO Global, a cross-border advisory firm. I work with an international team of consultants, and we work mostly on frontier and emerging markets and creating business opportunities and strategic relationships across borders. The reason that this panel interests me so much is because I personally have spent over a decade working on international projects in both government and private business. And with over 4 years of that actually living in Asia, being part of the Asian American Chamber of Commerce has really allowed me to kind of expand those relationships as well and create new ones. Um, I have a LLM in International Relations and Political Science from Tsinghua, an university in Beijing, bachelor's in International Business, and I'm also completing an MBA or executive MBA through Columbia Business School. And I wanted to just give a brief back introduction on my background and to set the stage for the panel that's going to come. Right now, the governments and private businesses are facing challenges, and I think that they're dealing with something that uh, a lot of us have never had to deal with before: COVID shutdowns, um, international issues, and uh, this is creating opportunities as well as challenges for local businesses and international investors. Um, as we know, international investments have come under scrutiny. Both business and investors like certainty, and right now we're at the height of uncertainty. The upcoming election is also adding to that. Whether the current administration stays in or a new administration comes in, we're going to see a shift in policies, and that's going to lead to opportunities and different challenges facing the business community. This could include a positive or negative pressure on trading partners, improvement in different relations, and also changes to regulations that affect how we operate abroad and how we interact with our international partners. And then lastly, we're facing a shift in supply chain strategy and overseas operations. I think COVID has shown us how easily supply chains can be disrupted, and businesses around the world are trying to figure out the best ways to mitigate this risk. Um, Additional factors that are influencing this are capital flow restrictions, localized data restrictions, and increasing pressure on individual companies to support a national interest. Now, given the global macro environment and impacts on individual businesses, I think we're very lucky to have this select panel of experts to give us a broader view of what businesses can, what resources are out there, some ideas on an insight from their individual perspectives, and hopefully educate the chamber members on what the businesses can be doing moving forward. Just to give a brief rundown on who is going to be speaking with us, we have Michelle Schimpf, the Deputy Associate Administrator from the Office of International Trade for the Small Business Association. We have Gerald Lamel, who is a partner at Dunlop, Bennett and Ludwig, to share insights into immigration and as well as legal considerations. And then Ian Russ, he's the CEO of Delta Rhino, a real estate investment management company, and working with a network of international investors. And so, with the upcoming elections, geopolitics, and the rapid shift in technology, global competition is requiring local businesses to think internationally. And despite travel restrictions, there's still a significant amount of activity in both inbound and outbound business and capital flows going on. And so, I hope that this presentation will be beneficial and educational. And more importantly, I hope this exposes your business to new resources and ideas. And so, to give a structure of this conversation, we're going to have each speaker give a little bit, share a little bit more about themselves, their organization, and their observations affecting the international environment. And then afterwards, we'll go into a structured discussion around various international topics. Most importantly, I want to leave time for all the businesses on this call to write in your questions and have allow the speakers to address your specific concerns and issues. And so to kick it off, we'll have Michelle Schimpf. If you want to introduce yourself and tell us about what your organization is doing.
Thanks, Brandon, and thanks. This is a just terrific opportunity. I'm in the Office of International Trade in the Small Business Administration, and SBA used to be like the best government kept secret, and now thanks to the Paycheck Protection Program and economic injury disaster loans, a lot of businesses know about us. Maybe you've come to know about us, and we have a lot more to offer than just the COVID relief kinds of activities. So this is a great opportunity for me to plug the services we have available to chamber members that can help you succeed and withstand the changes. I've been at SBA for the last 4 years. I have a couple decades of experience in international development work, worked at the U.S. Agency for International Development and the State Department before coming over to SBA in their Office of Investment and Innovation, and now with the Office of International Trade. So my job here is really to help aspiring exporters, current exporters, to expand their global sales overseas and to tap into all the different levers that the SBA can pull to make the trade environment more advantageous for small businesses. We have a seat at the table when it comes to trade policy negotiations. We have a loan portfolio, and we have a series of grants that we think are very, very relevant today. I'm going to tell you about more of them. But just in terms of the overall business context right now, to kick it off, we do see modest improvements in U.S. exports. The August statistics were up 2.2% over July, yet we're still at only 80% in terms of exports is where we were last year. 80% isn't terrible. And we want a lot of companies to know, I mean, that you may hear a lot of sort of more pessimism from other people on the panel, but I'm here to be an optimist. We've got 95% of the world's consumers and 2/3 of the world's purchasing power outside of the US. Only 1% of US small businesses export. That means 99% of US small businesses could grow by exporting. The opportunities are there. And, I'm here and my team's here to be able to help. Some of the things that we're seeing as bright spots amidst the more negative environment. So, e-commerce is really taking off, and the businesses that are looking into e-commerce, it positions them well to be selling to customers overseas. US, Mexico, Canada agreements in effect. And again, bringing in a number of improvements in how the three countries treat small business exporters with lower de minimis thresholds, commitments on advanced rulings, and other kinds of innovations. And then I think we're seeing that selling overseas is becoming a lot less expensive for small businesses in our new virtual world, right? The buyers no longer expect the face-to-face meetings requiring transcontinental flights. This may well change the way business is done into the future and make it a lot easier for small businesses to trade internationally. So, finally, if you have not considered exporting and this seems like a scary time, let me just tell you, exporters are more resilient. They rely less on any one market. They stay in business longer and they hire more employees. So, I really hope that folks will, if they're not already engaged there, come to this discussion and with some good questions to let us know how we can do more.
Amazing. And I know, for ourselves and our firm, we absolutely leverage the resources that are at the SBA. So it's great that you're here, and we look forward to having your insight on the different discussions. And next, I'd like to introduce Gerald Lamel. And if you could give us, a rundown of what you're doing and thoughts on the international environment, we'd love it.
Sure. Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here with you and the panel. It's an honor to represent not only Dunlop, Bennett, and Ludwig, but also I'm a board member of the Asian American Chamber of Commerce. And we welcome all of you for listening in and attending. The immigration. I am an immigration lawyer. Dunlop, Bennett, and Ludwig is a full-service law firm in several cities, including China. We work in the area of corporate law, intellectual property, employment, trusts and estates, real estate. Basically, any service that you're looking for, we probably have an answer to. We have an outstanding group, some 75 plus attorneys on staff, and more than happy to help. I am the immigration attorney, so my perspective is going to be that of people who are trying to invest in the United States and follow their money, come to the U.S. and with either a non-immigrant or immigrant visa, and also small businesses here that are looking for investors from overseas. So we work with both, and I don't think I'm breaking any news here, but immigration has been in the news quite a bit. It's a hot topic, very politicized topic. But the good news is for investors like e-visas, the treaty investor visas, where H-1B visas, people are coming here and starting businesses. For EB investors, that's the green card, where you're actually investing and obtaining a green card, a legal permanent residency in the United States. And the EB2 national interest waivers, where you're investing in the national interest of the United States. Those visas have actually, with the possible exception of H-1B, those visas have actually um, not been challenged as much. There are still many opportunities. It's a difficult terrain, and we will get into it as the conversation flows. But there, I think, particularly small businesses should be encouraged that in these difficult times there are opportunities.
Great. And we're definitely forward to hearing your insights and how this is impacting, the human capital flow and corporate strategy as well. And especially as, international and local businesses build international partnerships, I think the human capital is always a key component. So appreciate your introduction. And then last but not least is Ian Russ. And we'd love to hear more about you and what your company's doing and thoughts on the environment.
Thanks for that, Brandon, and thanks to my fellow panelists. I think we have some interesting conversations to have today. So Delta Rhino Capital, we're a private equity real estate firm. What we invest in commercial real estate here in the U.S., primarily using international capital. We have an office in Dubai, and we have an office in Indianapolis. We focus on secondary and tertiary markets in the U.S., so we're not looking at gateway cities like New York, Miami, San Francisco. We're, given the fact that we're based here in Indianapolis, you can see we're focused on, the smaller cities. We have been for the last 10 years. And I think that's something that's particularly bearing out quite well in this environment because of the pandemic, but we're also seeing a lot of increased focus from international investors on markets that otherwise, up until recently, they hadn't been too heavily focused on. International investors generally, when you're talking about international capital flows, they like to go to places that they know, and they might not know Akron, Ohio, or Overland Park, Kansas, or some places, smaller markets. But given the pressure on yields and return goals, that's been expanding a lot over the last few years, and I think in this more digital age, I think it's going to continue more and more. I think what we're seeing from more than anything over the last couple of years is that international capital flows have become more difficult when you're just moving money around from international markets to the U.S. There's been more and more scrutiny placed on all of those flows, particularly into real estate. There's several layers that you have to go through, and those layers, while they've always been there, have gotten a bit more difficult to pass through. So we've had to get a bit more creative about how we make that happen. And I think that's really the biggest change we've seen over the last few years, and what we're interested to see, and we've seen that ramp up. So we're interested to see what what change may or may not happen here in the next few weeks and coming months, depending on the outcome of the election.
That's great, and and definitely that cross-border capital flow is impacting not only just your sector, but it's impacting emerging technologies, even traditional businesses, and even state economies that are reliant on an international capital flow. So very, very much looking forward to your insight on that as we expand into the topics. And just for those that are listening, in the discussion box, for me, it's on the right-hand side. You have the ability to ask your questions as well, and we encourage that in the Q&A portion. So as questions come up, please let us know, because we'll be taking your questions and having the panel address it as well. So don't hesitate. We're a great resource for you right now. So please use it. So to kick this off, this is a general question to everybody. What are the types of challenges and the main challenges from your perspective that people are facing? That businesses, whether it's an international business coming in or the local business, or the domestic business that wants to expand. Michelle, you mentioned that 99% of small businesses aren't doing anything abroad. How do you change that narrative and educate or move that needle forward for people, for businesses that have opportunity and can leverage that?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is you decrease the uncertainties that folks have been talking about. We spend a lot of time just talking to businesses one-on-one about their unique strategies, what markets could pay off, what they need to be doing in terms of an export development plan. I think a big piece right now that we're hearing from our exporters is that financing is a huge problem. COVID's created situations where foreign buyers are lacking access to financing to pay for their imports, our exports. The foreign buyers are asking for advance payment or performance guarantees. A lot of companies with private credit risk insurance are finding that those are being canceled, those policies are being reduced, or conventional lines of credit for exporters or working capital financing are restricted. Financing for export inventory because of the disruptions is again a big issue. And large businesses, right, suppliers to large businesses are finding that the buyers are asking for extended payment terms, longer cash cycles, and then also exported goods aren't being able to enter a lot of foreign ports. So that is creating a real demand for finance products that enable our businesses to weather those kinds of disruptions. And then the other kinds of challenges that are making it extra hard these days to convince people to be exporters is even getting people to trade shows or trade missions. They're being canceled, right? They're just not happening. And all this virtual and digital activity, if you're a small business, like it's very hard to figure out where's the pay, what's a real prospect, a worthwhile investment of your time in going virtual. So, fortunately, SBA does have loans and grants that are helpful in order to help companies withstand this, but it's a lot. It's a very tough environment right now.
Yeah, and it's interesting along those lines, Michelle. You said something earlier that maybe this is an environment that allows that limits the requirement to be physically present. Maybe this is something that changes that dynamic a little bit. And it's certain, for the last 10 years, I've spent the last 10 years doing business in from Africa to Southeast Asia, UK, and the US. And what I found was the most important thing was having the proverbial boots on the ground for any business, regardless of your size, whether you're small, medium, or sovereign wealth fund. Having boots on the ground to be able to do that, to do business has been vital. And obviously, this is an environment that makes that much more difficult to actually make possible. But perhaps there's a silver lining. Perhaps that is going to change a little bit. People will have a bit more faith in transacting business based on relationships that are built digitally first and foremost. We've had, and we are first and foremost a Dubai-based business. Our business started in Dubai, and we spread back here to the U.S. Even though we were always investing in the U.S., we started where our investors are based, which is Middle East and India and Pakistan. But we found that during this time, we had to make sure we had boots on the ground in both places. And there was just we were able to accomplish that previously with travel. And without that ability, it simply wasn't possible any longer. So we split our partners and our responsibility. And I wonder if we were able to, make some progress on new endeavors and new relationships, but to get them over the finish line, we still had to be physically present. So I wonder what the change to that will be, but you brought it up earlier. It was interesting.
Well, from an immigration perspective, the the challenges are many, obviously, because of COVID. I mean, there were some challenges before COVID. Higher fees that have been sort of the trend in the last couple of years has helped to discourage a number of investors. The wait times for the U.S. immigration has been a challenge. Uh, Processing visas used to be, 6 to 12 months. Now we're you can be waiting several years in certain countries, as much as 10, 12, and that's certainly going to dampen the enthusiasm for investing in the United States. But COVID presented some special challenges. One of the big areas where we get a lot of foreign investment is in the area of construction and high profile hospitality and retail and office projects. And those have largely, those have slowed down considerably. And given that it's hard to attract some of the big wealth that we used to be able to attract fairly easily. In addition, there are job creation requirements, and at a point where millions of people across the country are losing their jobs, it's a hard sell to say that, hey, we're guaranteeing that we're going to increase the number of jobs or meet minimums, if required for his particular visa. So the economy and COVID and some of the policy changes are making it a lot more difficult or make it a challenging environment for attracting business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I'm on calls every morning and every night, with my counterparts overseas and our consultants that we use, and even with boots on the ground in many of these countries we operate in, it is still a challenge because even though we may be there, the clients and the businesses we work with, they might not have that same level of confidence that we have, and I think this is impacting a lot of different ways. And while I agree, this situation has created unique opportunities, and I think there's some businesses that once they're the ones that have been able to adapt and overcome, they're doing very, very well, or you're seeing that that growth curve. But a lot of them are still struggling, and I think that goes to the point of not knowing exactly where resources are, or just the steps to take to figure it out. And yeah, so it is a challenge, but I am always optimistic about international business. So I think the people that really want to make it happen are going to do it, and I think those who start planning now with their human capital, even thinking a year ahead, what are they going to do with their investments, or how could they attract, I think is great. One question, and one question that came up as well, and this was something from the panel, the discussion and Q&A box, was on resources. From your perspective, what are the resources the key resources businesses should be trying to collect when either doing business abroad or bringing in or attracting that international partner or investor? And I'd love to hear from all your different aspects, because I know each one of you have an international operation as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to take that and run with it for a second. I mean, as far as human resources are concerned, we take I suppose a very 21st century view of these things. The truth is that talent in the U.S. is, while from our perspective and in our world of kind of high finance, right, and private equity investment, the resources in the U.S. are what you want to pay for in the U.S. are for us a small team, and the strengths of what we have through kind of the American education system. What we find are very much our linear and process driven thought process. So we look for that talent here domestically, but a lot of our mechanical functionality, our investment analysis, bookkeeping, marketing work, we take an approach to that where the majority of that, which we think of as our various bullpens, whether it's our marketing bullpen, our analysis bullpen, our bookkeeping bullpen, whatever the case may be, we're hiring that abroad, and we're doing that through just private contractors. Now we've got we use a couple full-time employees in Dubai, but again, they're significantly lower cost than here in the U.S. An accountant in the UAE will cost me 20% of what it costs me here in the U.S. for a similarly qualified Big Four labeled accountant. So we really bifurcate, and we take an inherently international approach because there are tremendous skill sets that are abroad that are much more affordable. And frankly, we would never be able to get them into the U.S., to Gerald's point, within a reasonable time frame, which frankly, some of them I would vastly prefer to be able to do that. We've built, long working relationships with them. We'd love to give them that opportunity, but an accountant based in India, who we pay 20% of what I would pay for the same accountant here in the U.S., I'll never be able to get the visa waiver for that, because they would say, we'll just hire an accountant here in the U.S., right? So that's, our approach is very bifurcated that way. It's inherently international. We carve it up. We take our higher level functions that require that strategic thinking, that very organized, process-driven approach. That's kind of our small strike team that we keep here in the U.S., and everything else is split up based on time zone and skill set.
Oh, that's great. Michelle or Gerald, did you have any thoughts on I know, Michelle, you definitely do.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay? I got pumped off there for a second.
You sound great. You sound great.
Okay, great. Thanks. I really think businesses should be aware of export loans available through SBA, because they can be super helpful, and my team can help you. It's as easy as just emailing international@sba.gov. And basically, think about some benefits of these loans. For example, rather than requiring advance payments from your customers, these loans can enable your business to offer payment terms to make you more competitive through use of a working capital line of credit supported by foreign receivables and export inventory as collateral. I mean, that's huge, and SBA's product line enables that. Or rather than depleting your current cash resources, you can use one of our Export Express loans to proactively market your products or services to a foreign customer. Our international trade loans can be used to help in the purchase of machinery or equipment to expand your business export capacity and meet that fluctuating demand for your product. And again, if a business, if you need to ask foreign buyers for down payment or advance payment, they may require standby letters of credit to guarantee and protect that advance payment. And so an export working capital loan can support those requests for standby letters of credit. And then another whole category of resources available to small businesses are grants to pursue exporting opportunities. These are grants that enable your business under normal times to participate in a trade mission or a trade show. Traditionally, we've helped businesses to cover the costs of translating websites, setting themselves up for e-commerce, cybersecurity, IP protection, things like that. And now we're finding, in light of COVID, that there's a real demand for digital marketing strategies, website translations, website optimization so that it shows up in the different searches internationally. And again, these are grants. They're reimbursable grants, but your business undertakes these, and these are run through state economic development authorities. There is about, well, let's say $46 million right now available to small businesses for these grants. So again, if you want to learn more about them, you just need to visit international.sba.gov.
Oh, that's great. And real quick question, does that cover franchises as well that want to expand abroad?
It has to qualify as a small business. So if the franchise qualifies as a small business, by all means.
Okay, great. Any thoughts,
So,
Gerald?
yeah. So, after painting a very bleak picture about large investments in the international investments in the United States, I think there's a great opportunities for small investors and small businesses here that are looking to attract investors. I'm talking about investors like one, two, three, four, five investors as opposed to the 600 for the big hotel and downtown metropolitan area. More for the said boots on the ground kind of investment where you can actually see the terrain. You can see whether you can be successful or not. The four of us on this panel are dedicated to helping businesses succeed. This is what we do. This is, we are a tremendous resource. You can come to one of us for a variety of different services, each of us unique, but we can help make stuff happen. Also, would like to say groups like my own Asian American Chamber of Commerce. This is an organization that's dedicated specifically to helping small businesses in the DMV, a very important area with government contracting and a great deal of business transaction. We're dedicated to making the moving parts, putting the moving parts together so that a business can succeed, including dragging the rest of you on the panel into the to the table to help grow business. And if we focus more on smaller opportunities that we can manage, that we can handle, that we can see, that we can roadmap, as opposed to the larger ones where there's so much uncertainty, there are opportunities. I would encourage you to talk to any one of us about
That's great. And I absolutely want to echo that. All four of us and the businesses and expertise that are part of the chamber, which is available as a resource. And one example too is that it doesn't have to be, your opportunity may come in a non-traditional way. The Asian American Chamber, the chamber sent. I got a chance to go with them to Mongolia this last November, and we met 30, 40 businesses. A lot of businesses that had great products would be great either with a U.S. partner, and the thing about it, they all need the services that come with it. So even though it may be an inbound or a joint venture, there's still opportunity out there. And I think just staying engaged with us, with the chamber, with your other organizations that you're part of, will at least keep you aware of these opportunities.
Sure.
And one, the next, we've got about 5 more minutes before I open it up to the audience. So very quickly, I'd love to get your take. The November 4th, the election. I hope I got it right, November 4th. I'm so bad at that. The election, Trump wins or Biden wins. How should businesses be preparing for either scenario? And is there going to be, in your opinion, is there going to be a big difference in policy in the immediate future that businesses may or may not want to pay attention to or think about? Kind of a complicated question.
I can reassure folks that, I mean, the resources that SBA has available continue. They're provided by law, and nothing should change in terms of their availability. If anything, they may be a particularly good hedge against some other things that are less well known. So that all stays the same. I'm part of some of the trade negotiations that are going on right now with Kenya, with the UK. Those proceed. They proceed. And so and we'll see what's in store in terms of priorities for whatever the future administration is.
Yeah, I mean, our view is that the impact of elections are kind of generally overstated. To Michelle's point, the majority of the world continues on with business and life, kind of regardless of what is or isn't happening. I mean, we all have to live our life regardless of what's going on in the political sphere. It has impacts, obviously, at a macro level, policy impacts, things like that. but the uncertainty that people perceive right now is one, it's already here. So whatever the outcome of the election is, it provides certainty of one form or another. So getting past that date one way or the other is probably a good thing, at least from an investor standpoint. And it's often kind of like I had somebody tell me once, they don't really care who a person is, they just want to get to know who they are so they can figure out how to work with them. It's the same thing in the business world, right? It doesn't really matter who the president is. Everybody just needs to be able to figure out what they're doing as a result of what policy changes might be there or not be there. At least that's the pragmatic view from my particular sphere of people that I know.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're gonna have to live with whatever we have to live with. We just move forward. I always said the struggle is eternal. You just have to keep pushing, or you get pushed over. So whoever's there, we just keep moving forward. I think just to add though, there is Congress is the change in Congress could have a more dramatic impact in the immigration field. The Constitution vests all rule changes in immigration with Congress. That has not happened in the last 3 years. It's happened mainly by executive order. That may change, and with that change comes more debate and discussion before the rule changes. That could have an impact down the line. But the bottom line is the rumors 4 years ago that the immigration law would diminish and or be completely destroyed as a practice or discipline did not come to fruition. We're working as hard today as we ever have, and there are challenges, but we meet them, and we will continue to do so.
Absolutely.
Brandon, I had one other thought too. I think that in this period with administration change one way or another, that the role for organizations like the Asian American Chamber is particularly important. This is the time when fresh ideas are really welcome. Everyone feels like it's the fresh start, new agenda, and I think from business is front and center. International business is a little less appreciated, and I think the Asian American community is especially well positioned to talk authoritatively on it. So anyway, I welcome hearing those ideas and feeding them into the minor slice of transition planning that's in my domain.
Just to echo that, I would say I agree with that statement 100%. That international business is less appreciated in this environment. I think what we've seen more than anything is that movement of everything, people, goods, capital, is harder right now. So anybody who has the skill set to facilitate that and do international business in any way, shape, or form is going to be more valuable today, tomorrow, certainly for the short and medium term. And that just snowballs into the long term. So I agree with that 100%.
No, absolutely. And I think these are great insights and great recommendations. From our perspective, we're dealing with U.S. clients, international clients, and we're always having to, try to walk them through what is law and what is process in that particular country versus what is seen on the news. And it's, you made a great point, Gerald, is that, the Congress is what makes law. So being able to navigate and understand those differences is important. And the fact that, on the international business spectrum, a lot of times, a policy on a macro level may make an impact, but at the same time, your business model is still going to have to move forward. So just, putting your head down and just figuring out a solution around it is great. And I want to open it up now to any questions or comments. Please use the discussion box in the Q&A. We'd love to hear from you as well, or in the audience box also. And and one question that I had just to get it started um, is is regarding the, what are, can you share any sort of best practices for adapting to this new environment that you've seen? Any success stories that you've been able to share, or that you can share from either the COVID shutdowns or the political uncertainty, or both, because it's hard to pinpoint what's creating that single issue that a business has, or an investor. But we'd love to hear any sort of anecdotal stories that you could share.
From my perspective, the ability for business to, the statement that change is constant, right? We've all always known that. The difference today is that change happens faster. The rate of change itself is increasing, not just what change happens. So the ability for businesses to flex up and down based on changes is more important now than ever. And we've responded to that with our business by changing how we hire, right? As I described earlier, we keep a very small permanent team. The rest of the team can be flexed up and down based on deal volume and flows of capital. So I think that is, that's vital regardless of what line of business that you're in. That ability to flex up and down as needed is more important than ever.
I've been surprised by how many businesses tell me how they're finding great opportunities in the disruption. I was talking just yesterday with a company that basically leases airplanes and air engines, and they're moving out of passenger domain into cargo. And cargo is now where it's at, and it's really growing, and it's meeting a new demand. Talking with some healthcare solutions and entities, and they're both relevant to Operation Warp Speed domestically, and also then leveraging an international supply chain in order to meet our own country's needs. Our exporter of the year of this year is a water and sanitation firm out of Florida. And again, just continuing to find opportunities. And when you're, when we're in these spaces as U.S. firms solving important global challenges, they're working with the government of Uganda, the government of Thailand, to be able to bring clean water, and that doesn't change. That work still goes on. The way that they're doing it and how they're finding customers is changing a little bit. But so, we've seen a lot of the struggles through, the companies that have come in through the Paycheck Protection Program, the economic injury disaster. But it is also surprising to see how relevant we all are. We're seeing a lot of demand for our loans of companies that want to bring their operations back to the United States, so sort of reshoring, and then also a lot of interest in using our loans in order to acquire other companies in order to have greater control of supply chain, and again using loans for that. So I'm surprised by that to hear of so many stories of growth.
From the immigration perspective, we don't immigration law. There's not a lot of face-to-face time with clients because it's a federal practice. Our clients are either elsewhere in the country or indeed outside the country. But I think one of the areas where we're seeing some growth, I mean, we're right now on a software that is allowing for a lobby, a stage, floor, booth. And folks are trying to figure out ways to address the communication gaps that COVID has caused. What's going to be interesting going into the future is how people interact. Ian mentioned, boots on the ground. For a lot of investors, they want to see their investments, and we're now getting to a point where it's a lot harder to do, and there may be alternatives to the way we communicate in the future, because even if there's even if we address COVID, I think the world has changed quite a bit in the way we're going to interact. It's going to be interesting to see how that evolves and how these conversations continue to evolve and how we attract people and communities and investors and businesses and interaction in the future when a lot of it often depended on people being in one place at the same time.
That's great. And we do have one very specific question regarding franchises. So one of the members has a franchise and they'd like to establish franchises outside, for example, UAE, Australia, West Africa, and they're looking for any general advice. From my end, it would be make sure that you have the right contracts in place, and you've at least identified the attorneys in those countries. But I think it could. We'd love to hear any thoughts on that from any of your perspectives, even if it's.
I'll provide a comment just because she mentions the UAE specifically. Australia would be a separate, probably an easier and separate discussion. It's a country it's a Western. It's governed by the rule of law very clearly. There's a very Western thought process to how to do business there, and I think it would be quite easy. I would say I've done a fair amount of business in Northeast and South Africa, and obviously a lot in the UAE. The contracts and what is in writing is important, but more important, the one step above that is having done the due diligence on whomever the counterparty to that contract is, because it can be significantly more difficult to enforce contracts, file lawsuits, and much more protracted to go through legal processes in other countries. And so, coming back to something that was said earlier, using resources like the Asian American Chamber of Commerce, those networks where you can do due diligence on individual counterparties and find out what kind of track record they have. Are they honest? Some really simple things, those things that kind of go into that question of, are they a good person or not? That quintessential thing when somebody does or doesn't recommend another person. I have found that simplicity is the most important, and especially I can say from 10 years of experience in the Middle East, 100% that is the most important thing.
And Brandon, just very quickly, send us an email at international@sba.gov. We'll introduce you to your state trade expansion grants program, introduce you to some of the foreign commercial officers overseas. Happy to help anybody who wants to email us again at international@sba.gov.
Great, thank you. And for those of you who want to follow up with any of the panelists, again, for me, reach out on LinkedIn or our website, faoglobal.com. Gerald, I'm sure your information is out there, and please just leverage us.
Email at dbllawyers.com. And anything we do, we are a full service law firm. We do immigration as well as a lot of other things. Just give us a holler. We're more than happy to help.
Great. And I'll wrap it up here. But again, thank you everyone for joining, and I want to thank the panelists again for your time. The next panel should be the e-commerce panel, so you'll have to leave this room and click on the e-commerce floor. But again, thank you very much, and best of luck to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you to our international panel business representatives for their presentations and informative discussion. I also want to thank the panel moderator, Brandon Hughes, founder of FAO Global, for facilitating the discussion. It now brings us to our second panel that will be moderated by Miss April Wong, founder and CEO of Martakana, who will introduce Mr. David Phillips, CEO Journey, and Ms. Garima Agarwal, Vice President of Williams & Sonoma, Inc., that will lead us through an e-commerce panel discussion. Ms. Wong, you have the floor to begin the e-commerce panel. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the last session of this year's summit. My name is April, and I'm the founder and CEO of Marketana, a digital marketing company in DC. Today, I have the honor and the pleasure of representing the Asian American Chamber of Commerce to moderate this panel discussion. This panel discussion is intended to highlight a topic that I think a lot of people are very interested in and want to learn more about that. That would be e-commerce, basically the process of buying and selling online. And I would like to welcome the audience from all over the country to join us for the discussion. You are totally in for a real treat today. I want to add some housekeeping notes here. Please type your question in the discussion, on the right side of the discussion area, and we will get back to you. And please be specific whose these questions are for. So we will get back to you later in the program if we have extra time. Now I'm going to turn to our panel. Our panel includes 3 extraordinary e-commerce gurus who have successful and amazing careers. I'm not just going to let you introduce yourself. Is that okay? And maybe let's do lady first, Garima. Let you introduce yourself first, and then we'll go one by one.
Thank you. Thanks, April, for the introduction. And thanks to the organizers of the summit and Asian American Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity. I'm really excited to be here on this panel today. So about myself, I've been in the technology industry throughout my career. It's longer than I would like to admit. I started off my career as an engineer in the telecom industry, working in Motorola. And I spent about a decade in telecom, Motorola, Samsung, and sort of larger companies in that space. It gave me an opportunity to kind of witness the rise of mobility, the revolution, the consumer revolution that followed with the birth of iPhone and the whole, the switch from the phones like we knew them and the new generation we are in. And then I spent some time working in the startup environment here in the Valley, in the Silicon Valley, getting hands-on experience with technology strategy and execution. Both of these experiences, I think, really set me up for what came after when I was introduced to retail, which is where I spent the better half of this decade. I was at Kohl's before my current job, and that's where I got the opportunity to lead the transformation for mobility and innovation. And then in my current job now, I lead technology innovation for Williams-Sonoma, along with technology strategy for stores and e-commerce. So yeah, I'm happy to be here today.
Thank you. How about Shyam? You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, happy to. Good afternoon, everyone on the East Coast and everywhere, really. Thanks, April, for facilitating. Excited to be part of this panel. So my name is Shyam. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Punch. We're the world-leading loyalty offers and engagement platform for restaurants, groceries, convenience retailers, and general retailers. We serve more than 200 brands across 90,000 physical locations globally, powering experiences for more than 155 million consumers. We're venture funded. We've raised about 70 million so far and are celebrating actually our 10th birthday as a company this year. And what we do is we help power these modern loyalty experiences to help retailers essentially understand who their consumers are and use real-time data to increase lifetime value. Again, thank you for having me on. Excited to be here.
Thank you, Shyam. And David?
Yeah, thanks. Great to be here as well. I echo the sentiment. It's a real pleasure. My name is David. I'm the president and co-founder of Journey. We're a technology startup. We're also a venture-backed startup as well. So we're a software-based management service for hotels and hospitality. So we basically put together a very innovative, disruptive technology, a very proprietary operating business model that allow us to operate very efficient, high-profit hotels for our owners. And we manage assets all over the country and world. We're a high-growth company. And obviously, with what happened in the world in 2020, with the pandemic and with a major stall on travel and effect on many different industries, travel is one of the ones that was hit hardest, of course. And so we really had to lean on our technology and on our margins to be able to stay afloat and actually, thankfully, grow a lot during this time. So I'm pleased to be here and talk a little bit about our experience in today's new world as well.
Thank you so much. That's great. Well, to kick off today's discussions, I want to ask a first and the most important question. That is, what impact do you think technology is having on your industry? Maybe Garima, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. But before I answer, I just want to caveat the conversation with a quick note that these responses are my personal views. They do not represent Williams-Sonoma's official stance on any of these questions that I answered today. So put that out of the way. I believe that the most consequential impact of technology on retail is it's the enablement of the shift, the consumer behavioral shift to e-commerce. Statistically, e-commerce has grown a whopping 166% as compared to total retail sales just in the US, from 4.2% in 2010 to 11.2% in 2020. With this shift, the retailers have had to figure out how to maximize the potential for each of their channels to its strength. So, for example, stores offer that immersive, like that one-on-one experience that brings out that personal touch and that connection to the brand. And digital, on the other hand, offers convenience. Get your product in your hand tomorrow without ever leaving your couch. As a result, categorically, retail has been disrupted in customer experience, supply chain, operations, and there's been a fundamental foundational shift towards data and analytics, obviously. So when I talk about customer experience, enabling customer engagement anytime, anywhere, with mobile web, mobile applications, social channels, desktop, collecting customer preferences and behavioral data across all of these touch points, then applying advanced AI, ML-based analytics to these data points, creating microsegments, and then using those microsegments to enable personalization, cross-marketing campaigns, and shop and browse experiences, whether it's online, in-store, any channel. And finally, last but not the least, supply chain is another area which is going through a major transformation, because data and technology and ML have enabled access to demand forecasting, predictive allocation, predictive inventory planning and allocation, pricing, fulfillment strategies. They're all become truly magnetized, right? In general, I think this consumer behavior shift has transformed retail, and technology has had a cascading impact on, I think, every business process, every operation, and it's made it critical for retailers to adapt to this shift for bare bones, like for survival. This is table stakes at this time.
See, good. And Shyam, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think Garima hit the nail on its head. We obviously, our industries are somewhat adjacent to Garima's. We service physical retailers with e-commerce footprints as well, in restaurants, convenience, groceries. And what we're seeing is two things. From a consumer perspective, expectations are completely changing. Consumers want convenience, they want value, they want personalization, of course. But during COVID, I think they also want safety, right? And what that means is that technology is affecting every type of interaction between consumers and retailers. So shifting towards contactless experiences, from ordering to delivery, pickup, omni-channel experiences, not just mobile and desktop or mobile web. It's really BOPIS, so ordering online, picking up in store, ordering online, getting it delivered, obviously becoming super ubiquitous, but really stitching together online and in store in a more integrated fashion. In convenience, it's about at the pump, in store, near store, at home. And the other big change we're seeing is that there's an entrance of large marketplaces and aggregators, guys like folks like DoorDash, Instacart, gaining scale, and these aggregators could disrupt the consumer relationships between brands and consumers, right? Brands become loyal to the marketplace rather than, consumers become loyal to the marketplace rather than the brand. So that's the shift we're seeing on the consumer side. I think on the brand side, it's really about understanding omni-channel data in real time and being able to action on it in real time. So personalization really means that if you have a database of 10 million consumers, you need to have 10 million loyalty programs today. And to Garima's point, it's about using AI to automate these consumer journeys from that first anonymous transaction to making them super fans and really predicting behaviors and ultimately increasing customer lifetime value. So major shifts happening on the sort of retail side, the brand side, and major pressures affecting how consumers shop, and all underpinning all of this is acceleration in tech, mobile and sort of marketplaces.
That's great. I totally hear you. And maybe move on to the next question I have. Maybe this is more for David. And the question is like, what are the biggest challenges associated with digital transformations, right? We hear digital transformations all the time, especially like this year, right? Everyone is thinking about digital transformation. But what are really, like, you see from your industry, what are really the biggest challenges? And maybe you can share your opinions around that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's actually a very pertinent question, specifically for my industry as well, of travel and hospitality. And it's, a number of years ago, there's already been a shift starting to take place in the world, right? Consumers want digital transformation. They want, as Shyam said, an automated experience, whether, you're ordering food on DoorDash or Postmate or whatever, or calling a personal driver through Uber, or streaming entertainment on Netflix. It's all about your device giving you full control over your experience and not really having to talk to anybody to get that experience, right? And when you think about like the hotel industry and the hospitality industry, the first, question as I talk to people in this industry who are having to really rapidly try and adapt to this new normal, it's hard for them to wrap their minds around because it's, well, but we're specifically in hospitality. We need to be hands-on. And believe it or not, I think that that's changing. And I think that was changing prior to the pandemic. I think it accelerated tremendously in today's world. It's about the experience, right? Being hospitable to someone is giving them the experience that they want, the experience that they seek, and being able to do that efficiently and effectively. And so I think that the challenges specifically, though, around doing that is complicated, because how do you give somebody a peopleless, a contactless experience? You give them the technology, you give them the ability to have control over what they're doing. To be specific, in the hotel industry, what we're talking about, a journey is that the ability to, book a unit, to book your stay, to control your stay from checking in to your thermostat, to your internet, to talking to your concierge, all through your app, right? And all being native in the app. So you don't have to go outside of it to have your full experience. But to do that, there's so many complications on the back end that will allow that to be a good experience on the front end for travelers, right? And so I think it's a great question of like, what are the challenges you see? And I think it's about how do you create processes and how do you create the right technologies around the different aspects of a stay, and at least for my industry, right, of a stay, or of of booking your travel, and checking into your hotel, and how do you make sure that that all runs fluidly and seamlessly, and things don't break down, and things are efficient for the end guest, but not putting a strain on the back end. And so that's the focus that I think we've had, and that you need to have, especially in today's new normal. I know that all hotels across the board are looking at contactless check-in, are looking at the ability to, supersede the front desk and not have to loiter in a lobby with a bunch of other people. And I think that if by keeping a focus on that, you'll be able to overcome those types of challenges. And you want to just create processes every step of the way. I think that's something you need to do to overcome some of that.
I see. Anybody else have anything to add? If no, and then so moving on to the next question. We hear a lot of buzzwords these days, right? So a question to maybe to all of you is like, what are the biggest transformational technologies you think are most impactful and are going to stay, right? It's not just for this time, we're in special times, but not just for this time. Any transformational technology we're going to stay, like continually going to stay, like even after COVID-19 days. Who want to go first? Anyone want to volunteer first? Maybe Sean, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure, I can go first. I have two things that are kind of very obvious, and everyone's going to be like, okay, yeah, makes sense. But really, it's a shift. I think clearly mobile devices, especially with 5G coming in, have transformed how people behave and what they do. But really, the impact, and what I mean by that is, I think there's an expectation towards delivering and driving towards completely seamless experiences, much like the Amazon Go model, right? The ability to pay, earn, get ordering, delivery, all rolled into one contactless experience. I think that convenience, we're going to see it stay. I don't think physical is going to go away. Human beings are social animals. We crave that interaction. But pre-pandemic, the shift, the split of in retail was 90% of transactions were happening in a physical world, only 10% through e-com. Today, obviously, it's tilted, but it'll settle somewhere, in our opinion, let's say it's 60-40, 60% in-store, 40% online. But those physical interactions will shift towards a seamless experience through mobile device. So everything integrated through an app, just touchless. On the brand side, we think what we do is in MarTech, marketing technology, really, it's AI. And I think it's about making marketers much more effective and in how they reach out to people and scale their in-house capabilities. We call it boring AI. Really, it's about using AI to transform, sort of very old school processes, right? Move from sort of marketing to personalization. No spray and pray. It's really about one-to-one, all the stuff Garima was mentioning, and using AI to understand consumer data and then actioning on it everywhere through all channels, in-store, online, mobile, etc. So if I were to distill it, on the consumer side, it's really a shift towards using stuff that exists today for seamless experiences, and on the sort of business side, for marketers, because that's the world we live in, it's about using AI to streamline existing processes.
I see. Interesting.
I'm happy to add to that. I fully agree. It's about seamless experiences and using the technology directed towards that, right? We're always trying to put the consumer first because that's what's going to win in the long run. And as I mentioned before, I believe that the pandemic and this new normal actually it accelerated theses and visions that were taking place prior. Specifically in my industry, there were a number of companies that were these new startups in the hospitality offering what's called the new way of stay. And everybody talked about how it's seamless, how there's technology based, how no check-in, how you can get in automatically, and how you don't have to wait in line, and how you can talk to somebody immediately through your phone, but you don't have to see anybody if you don't want to. That level of control and seamlessness, and I think that's here to stay. And I think that was taking place already. Again, when you disrupt an industry and I'm a startup, so by nature, we have this kind of view. But when you disrupt an industry by nature, it's going to be, the fact that it's disruptive means it's going to be complicated. It means people are not going to get it at the beginning. Otherwise, everybody would be doing it. But eventually, you're going to start to get a mass adoption. And the mass adoption, I think, is picking up steam because even the big hotel chains know you need to do this. Because when people experience that immediate gratification around their experience, they're not going to want to let that go. And so, again, I do believe it is the necessary change for health and for today's world, but I believe it's here to stay as well. And it's going to open people's eyes to it that they can have both, actually. You can have high touch and you can have automation, and it can live together.
And I agree with that. You have
I think they covered it really well. I'll probably can add a little bit color from a retail point of view, but I really like what you said about boring AI. Sean, I'm going to steal that for my next talk if there's one. But I think in all seriousness, this is a very important question because this comes down to prioritization, right? With this explosive growth of innovation and technology in the last few decades, we're actually really blessed to live in a time where nothing feels impossible anymore. I mean, we have like two great founders on this panel. Like, they're disrupting their industries. And it's because, boundaries of knowledge, like whether it's material science, space technology, agriculture, and energy, any industry, every industry is pushing that boundary, right? And as leaders, I think it's critical for us to be able to whet the readiness of the technology for our business at the right time and adopt, or say, you're not ready for it yet, right? In my view, I'll actually piggyback on what Sean said. In my view, the most impactful technology that we all need to embrace, regardless of industry, regardless of role, regardless of the stage in the transformation that your business might be in, is machine learning. Machine learning is not a new concept. It's been around for decades. The only reason it's become actionable and applicable today is because of the breakthrough in certain sort of areas, the graphic cards, GPUs, where we were now able to run ML on sort of commodity machines without having to, need a research lab to actually see some results. So I think that's the reason why it's become a mainstream. Now, I think the thing people struggle with, like, everybody's talking about ML and like me, people are always wondering, like, why is this relevant to me? What does it do to translate into the change for my business and my day-to-day role, right? I think the key to understand machine learning and the impact is that it impacts every process that takes data as an input, applies certain business rules, and then generates some output. And it removes the dependencies that reside in that fixed business logic, and makes it that underlying software becomes a lot more adaptable to changing trends and signals and market signals that we as humans might not be able to read. So, for example, if your business is, let's say, offering a set of products to your customers online at a certain price, right? These are pretty static business decisions that you can make today. Right? You know how much inventory you have, you know what your cost is for manufacturing, your margins, and you can price your product, right? But if you had to also account for the changing weather in each city that you ship your product to, the changing tax rates in different counties, which impacts, by the way, your supply chain, your shipping costs, it impacts your labor costs, the socioeconomic changes that are happening, election year, and other micro patterns. If you have to track every one of them every minute of every day, it's impossible to keep track of those changes and to build that kind of logic and keep it updated across our business applications. So machine learning enables that as a possibility. And because it starts to learn those patterns over time, and the decisions can be made seamlessly without even a human being in there trying to detect, oh, I should change my shipping, I should change my pricing, I should apply a promo here. So machine learning is fundamentally changing the playing field, and this is not the one to be considered a buzzword. It's one to be exploited and explored to understand how to apply to your business.
That's great. That's great. Machine learning. That's we hear a lot. It's a buzzword, but it's not just a buzzword. It's actually applicable to the real businesses. So now moving to I have another question that I think it's related to COVID-19. So what kind of fundamental impact do you think COVID-19 has already happened in your industry over the last few months? And do you think these trends are going to stay and are going to be permanent? It's similar to the question number 2, but I think it's maybe in a different angle. We want to ask, like, some of the fundamental impact in your industry about from this COVID-19, the pandemic. I would like to volunteer Sean to answer this question.
Sure.
See on the loyalty, customer experience side.
Yeah. So it's interesting, this year we're in the business of sort of B2C digital transformation. Yeah. So we've been quite busy, but our industries, our verticals have seen some pretty dramatic impacts. So On the restaurant side, we serve some of the largest brands in the world. 26 of the top 100 chains in the world on our platform. But in general, in the restaurant category, we've seen that a quarter of U.S. restaurants have temporarily or permanently closed due to dine-in restrictions or consumer caution or decline in drive-in has led to these restaurants shutting down. But at the same time, chains, larger businesses that had a digital footprint have thrived. They're pivoting to either nearly 100% takeout or digital, and ones that haven't are sort of scrambling to put that into place. On the grocery side, we've seen a 10-year acceleration in online sales in the last 6 months. Convenience retail is a hybrid impact, compared with grocers and restaurants. So there are a lot of convenience retailers have a food service business, which is the same as restaurants and grocers, but they're also different in that most consumers are staying at home and commuting less, and so buying less gas. And so they're making food service items a bit more prominent. So this has affected all three sort of sub verticals, but the changes that are here to stay for the most part, number one, digital transformation. I know we're talking about that ad nauseum today, but the idea that consumers should be able to come in, order through any channel, get their goods or service or food through any channel, be able to order online, come in, pick up, drive through, seamlessly, contactless. That's here to stay. And once consumers feel safe, they'll come back to physical, but digital experiences are expected today and important. I think groceries have been somewhat slower to transform digitally, but grocers who don't adopt will perish, unfortunately, compared with digitally nimble competitors. I can tell you, sitting here in the Bay Area, even before the pandemic, I can't tell you the last time I stepped into a grocer. We do everything online, things like Amazon Fresh, Instacart, and consumers will find less joy in shopping in store after getting used to getting all the stuff with the convenience that they do through a mobile device or at home. I think convenience retail needs to be sort of digitally flexible and less reliant on just gas to continue to increase the draw for food service. So a lot of convenience retailers are actually becoming almost like restaurants to attract folks into their retail footprint. And in general, retailers, I would love to hear Garima's take on this, but I think the stores need to become more about the experience, right? How can they help consumers try products, understand what they truly need, better fit, et cetera, especially for higher end goods or apparel. But the actual purchase pickup experience needs to be completely digital. Curbside pickup, shopping in store, not just online, needs to be seamless. So think Apple Store rather than sort of Comcast Store. I think that's really where it's all headed from our perspective.
Nice. And I'm moving to my last question. So e-commerce, right? So technology, and it's kind of natural that I'm going to ask this about innovation questions, right? So we all know that innovation is important, right? But in this environment, what really innovation means to you, and what role does innovation play in your industry? As a company, right? As a company to kind of maneuver all these changes, right? So how do you see innovation play a role in your company? And David, you want to go first for this question?
Yeah, happy to. And I'll start with, just to backtrack a second, that connects to the answer. And it's imperative that innovation it takes place in this industry, because you asked about the impact of COVID, right? And travel got it among the worst, right? People can't fly, stop going, countries shut down. $46 billion in revenue have been lost, right, in the hotel industry. 65% of hotels are not even at 50% occupancy, and that's the number you need usually to cover your debt service and to break even as a hotel. That's scary. That's very scary, because there's going to be a trickle effect and a cascading effect where the whole industry and landscape is going to change, and it's beyond our control, because they're going to default on debt. I mean, I heard literally, I think 2 days ago, 120 hotels defaulted. I mean, from one brand. Just that was yesterday's news. I mean, that happens every other day right now, unfortunately. So 65% of, so it's going to be a massive shift in the whole entire industry. And you're going to see a whole new type of, experience and a whole new type of hotel emerge, not just like about my company. Like, this is what's going to take place in the industry of technology, needing that type of innovation. I think that what we can learn from what's going on right now, the part of the problem is playing catch up, right? When something happens and you have to play catch up to the situation, by definition, you're starting behind. Whereas if you can always be innovating and always try to be disrupting, even in your own company, in your own business, try to disrupt your own way of doing things and always be open for change proactively, not reactively, you will stay ahead of the curve. And I think that the companies who have done that in every industry have been able to thrive. And even if you have to go through some uphill battles, we'll be able to last and change into the future, and it will be for the better. Shai mentioned a lot of them, right? Like tech companies in general, they're all, by definition, they're disruptors, and they're able to stay afloat and actually grow. And I think that if we can, that's the main thing to take from this, is that use this as an opportunity to get ahead of the curve on innovation and never stop. When things seem to be going good, when things go well, you think it never ends. And when things are bad, you think it never ends. That's like a human nature thing, right? So we're going up and down all the time. Get away from that, right? Be even keel in your emotion, but always be innovating. And that's something that we try to instill in our company culture. And I think that is something that I've noticed in all industries, no matter how bad the effect, that for those who are focused on looking at things that way, always be innovating as a person, as a leader, as an employee, as a company, as a vision. Those are people who do thrive no matter what happens. And yeah.
And then, Garima, you want to?
Yeah, I could not agree more. I violently agree with what you've shared. I mean, innovation, it has a place close to my heart. It's been part of my focus for a few years. It's actually, it's part of my job, right? I've been leading innovation for the retailers that I've been with for years now. In some ways, I would say it's not only has it morphed my career, it's given me an opportunity to wear the entrepreneurial hat and question the status quo, sometimes applying new technologies to solve these sort of age-old problems, and sometimes questioning those age-old problems themselves. So, right, like I'm very risk averse. So like what these gentlemen are doing, like I'm just doing sort of within the sort of the safety umbrella of a larger organization. And I'm super passionate about innovation, and I 100% agree with what David said, because it's so critical to always be disruptive with your own, existential. It's an existential need at this time. Speaking strictly of in the context of technology innovation. The way I look at innovation, and it's not necessarily applicable now, it's really evergreen, it's applicable at all times. I look at innovation as a broad spectrum of capabilities. And these capabilities can unlock a world of opportunity. It can unlock the opportunity to solve any business problems using technology in any industry. Think of it like a set of tools in a toolbox that you own. And these tools could be breakthrough technologies like machine learning. We talked about it, and I can talk about it all day. There could be collaborative robots. It could be IoT. It could be AR, VR, whatever the technology disruption itself is. But the most important tools of innovation actually belongs with creative thinking and problem solving and that spirit of disruption. I think the innovation and the culture of innovation, it's table stakes, right, in the world that we live in. And we're seeing example after example. Companies that have failed to stay relevant and have failed to disrupt their own model, their own business models. They have failed to survive. The companies who are enjoying all measures of growth, you name it, like Google and Facebook and Apple. They're the ones who are continuously disrupting themselves. They're continuously embracing that culture of change. And I think that is what innovation means to me today and in the future.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I completely agree. That's innovation is not just technology. It's a embrace a culture of change, and innovate and be able to open to the change to the world, and be adapted to new technology, new process, and new product and service into your company, and including new culture as well. So let's see if I have any questions from the audience. Oh no, so we are good. Lucky. Then any final words from the panelists you want to address to the audience before we draw the close to this session? And anything you want to say, anyone? Good.
Just it was great being here with all of you guys. I really enjoyed the conversation and the input. Great insights, all of you. It was awesome. And I think we're all going through a crazy, crazy, crazy time. We're all, it looks like, talking from home right now. I know that all my team and my company work from home. Let's just keep innovating and changing and working together and getting through it. And I think unity will bring us out of this mess at some point. So, I just wish that on all of us. I guess that would be my parting words for this panel.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, well said. Thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate it, and really glad to be here. And really good thought, David. Echo it.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Great to be with you all.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having us, April. It was a great conversation. I truly enjoyed it. And stay safe, everyone. Stay healthy. We'll hopefully meet in the future in a physical setting.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I have been enjoying this very much. I just want to thank you, AACC, for hosting such a wonderful event. And thank you so much. And again, I'm April on behalf of AACC. We thank you all for coming here and for such a wonderful event. I hope we see each other next year, and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to our e-commerce panel for their incredible insights. And also thank you to the e-commerce panel moderator, Ms. April Wong, for facilitating the discussion. Before we proceed to our final activity of our business summit this Friday afternoon, it is my pleasure to reintroduce Ms. Stephanie Shea, AACC chairwoman, who will share some remarks.
Hi, everyone. Time flies. We're at the end of the program. On behalf of MNT, we are happy to be one of the sponsors to support our community. On behalf of the Asian American Chamber of Commerce, thanks to all sponsors, speakers, and attendees. We can't make it without your support. Our thanks must also go to the president of AACC, Dr. Cindy Xiao, who has worked tirelessly to make our events happen in this challenging environment. We will see you whether online or in person next year. Please stay healthy and safe. And after that, feel free to go to lunch to grab a seat for networking. Bye-bye.